Imagine the scene. Your router's lights turn a blinking red. The world outside slows to a crawl. Your smartphone is a paperweight, and spinning wheels of death claim every tab on your browser. For most, this is the beginning of a digital dark age, where the tools we rely on for thought simply vanish. But as the sovereign user, you don't reach for the reset button. You don't wait for the ISP to fix the line. Instead, you open your laptop, and without a single bar of signal, you begin to work. You ask a complex question about a code base or request a creative synthesis of 100 documents. The response doesn't lag. It doesn't travel 3,000 miles to a data center. It appears instantly, an unfiltered and personal response generated by a silent, powerful brain living directly inside your hardware. This is the end of the cloud tether, but in the beginning of something far more potent. For the last few years, we have been living in the era of AI as a rental property. We became addicted to the convenience of cloud AI. Every time you prompt ChatGPT or Claude, you are participating in a massive invisible migration of data. Your ideas and your complex, multi-layered proprietary projects are packaged and sent to corporate servers. You pay a monthly subscription fee for the privilege of accessing intelligence that you do not own. If the internet goes down, or if the provider decides your query violates a shifting set of corporate guidelines, the lights go out. We have been living as digital tenants, paying rent for the tools of our cognition. But the winds are shifting. The model of AI as a service is being challenged by a much more radical idea: AI as a utility. This is where Gemma 4 enters the story. It represents a fundamental pivot in how we interact with artificial intelligence. Instead of a distant god in the cloud, Gemma 4 is a state-of-the-art model designed to live on your own SSD, utilizing the RAM and the specialized neural processing units that are now standard in modern machines. We are moving away from the rental model where your intelligence is leased, and toward the sovereign model where you own the engine of your digital life. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. This evolution is about more than just convenience. It is about reclaiming the autonomy we surrendered during the first wave of the AI boom. Think about the implications of having a world-class intelligence sitting on chip right next to your files. In the cloud, every interaction is a transaction. There is latency, a round-trip delay that reminds you that you are talking to someone else's computer. There are token limits and tiered pricing models that dictate how much you are allowed to think each month. With local models like Gemma 4, those barriers dissolve. There is no processing bar that hangs while a server farm halfway across the globe decides how to prioritize your request. The response is local, private, and effectively free once the hardware is in your hands. It is the difference between having to call a library every time you want to read a sentence and having the entire library sitting on your desk. You might wonder why a titan like Google, the king of the cloud, would release a model like Gemma 4 for local use. Why give away the keys to the kingdom? The answer isn't corporate altruism. It is a strategic strike in a larger war. By making high-performance models available for local execution, they are destroying the moats of competitors who rely on closed ecosystems. If everyone can run a godlike intelligence on their own MacBook or PC, the value of a $20 a month cloud subscription begins to plummet. They are democratizing the power of the machine to ensure that no single entity can gatekeep the future of thought. The era of asking permission to use AI is over. This is the start of the local revolution. We are witnessing the birth of a time when the sovereign user holds the reins. No longer must we worry about data leaks or the whims of a board. The intelligence is yours. It is fast, it is private, and it is local. This isn't just a technical update, it's a restoration of digital rights. As we stand at the threshold of this new era, the question isn't whether AI will change the world. The question is who will own that change. With Gemma 4, the power stays exactly where it belongs. In your hands, on your hardware, under your control. The cloud was a temporary bridge. Now we are finally coming home to our own machines. To understand why this shift is so seismic, we must look beneath the surface at the architecture of freedom. For years, the AI landscape was a walled garden. These were the closed models, the proprietary property of the cloud tether. They were black boxes, immense, opaque, and entirely controlled by corporate gatekeepers. But Gemma 4 represents the peak of the open model evolution. Open models aren't just software, they are a public blueprint for the future. They allow the sovereign user to see the weights, understand the underlying structure, and most importantly, run the engine without a middleman. It is the difference between a car you can only drive if the manufacturer sends a signal and a vehicle you own own, repair, and fuel in your own garage. This openness is the bedrock of the revolution. The magic lies in a technical leap that allowed us to shrink what once required a city-sized data center into a file that fits on a standard SSD. A few years ago, running a model with billions of parameters on a consumer laptop was laughable. But through breakthroughs in quantization and architectural efficiency, Gemma 4 has been compressed without losing its cognitive edge. It is a process of refining intelligence, removing the bloat while preserving the spark of reason. When the sovereign user downloads this model, they aren't just getting software, they are inheriting the collective knowledge of millions of documents, refined into a package that respects the limitations of local hardware. Godlike intelligence that fits on your machine. This brings us to the most critical pillar, privacy as a default state. In the era of the cloud tether, your data was the true product. Every prompt you typed, every secret you shared, and every line of code you sought to debug was a data point for a corporate algorithm. In the cloud, privacy was often just a promise on a legal document that few people actually read. Locally, however, privacy is a physical reality. Your data never leaves your RAM. It never traverses a fiber optic cable to reach a server in another country. It stays within the silicon walls of your own machine. This isn't merely a technical feature. It is the restoration of a fundamental human right. The right to think, explore, and create in total privacy, without an invisible observer watching your shoulder. Then there is the matter of speed. We have become accustomed to the round-trip delay of the cloud. You type, you wait, the signal travels to the data center, and the answer eventually travels back. In the world of Gemma 4, this delay is obliterated. Because the intelligence is on chip, the response is near instant. The interaction feels less like a conversation with a distant entity and more like an extension of your own thought process. This zero latency environment fundamentally changes the psychology of the user. When the feedback loop is immediate, the friction of creation disappears. You don't hesitate to ask what if because there is no cost, no token limit, and no wait. The AI becomes a seamless part of your stream of consciousness. This revolution is being fueled by a silent transformation in our hardware. Modern MacBooks and PCs are no longer just faster calculators. They are being equipped with NPUs, neural processing units. These are specialized components designed to mimic the parallel processing of the human brain. While a CPU handles logic and a GPU renders pixels, the NPU is dedicated entirely to the heavy lifting of artificial intelligence. Your computer is evolving from a machine that executes commands into a biological style processor that can understand context. The sovereign user isn't just upgrading their software, they are inhabiting a new kind of architecture where intelligence is a native feature of the silicon itself. If this feels familiar, it is because we have been here before. In the 1980s, computing power moved from massive mainframes to the desktop. History is repeating itself, but the stakes are higher. We are moving from the mainframe AI of the cloud to the personal AI of the local machine. This is the architecture of freedom, where the individual is no longer a terminal, but the center of their own private digital universe. The shift to a local capability is the hallmark of every technological liberation. This shift from centralized servers to the local silicon in your hands does more than just protect your data. It breathes life into the static worlds we inhabit for leisure. For decades, the gaming industry has chased the dragon of total immersion, pouring billions into hyper-realistic textures and ray-traced lighting. Yet when you speak to a character, the illusion shatters. These non-player characters, or NPCs, have remained little more than sophisticated puppets. They are bound by rigid scripts, predictable loops, and a finite set of recorded lines. You can save their world or burn their village, and often their response remains the same. They are ghosts in a machine, incapable of true reaction because their minds are merely a list of if-then statements written months or years before you even press start. But as the sovereign user, you are now entering a gaming renaissance. This is the moment where the static script dies and the living world begins. By integrating Gemma 4 directly into the game engine, developers are no longer writing dialogue. They are crafting personalities. Imagine every shopkeeper, every wandering guard, and every mysterious hermit having a dedicated brain powered by a local 7B or 27B model. These are not just blocks of text. They are intelligent agents with the capacity for emergent behavior. When you approach a character, they are not scanning a file for a specific line. Instead, they are processing the context of your journey, the state of the world, and their own simulated history. This leads to what we call emergent gameplay, the holy grail of digital interaction. In this new era, characters hold grudges. If the sovereign user decides to manipulate a local economy or betray a faction, the NPCs do not just register a numerical reputation score. They remember, they form alliances against you or offer secret quests because they have developed a genuine digital trust in your actions. These interactions are not pre-written by a developer in an office. They are generated in real time on your own hardware, unique to your specific playthrough. No two players will ever have the same conversation because no two players will ever live the same story. The most jarring barrier in modern gaming has always been the processing bar, the brief immersion-killing pause where the game has to think or call out to a server. Because Gemma 4 runs locally on your NPU, that barrier is incinerated. You can speak into your microphone using your natural voice, and the NPC responds instantly. There is no round trip to the cloud, no waiting for a text-to-speech engine to catch up. The conversation flows with the rhythm of human speech. You can interrupt them, ask for clarification, or crack a joke, and the local AI adapts the character's tone and body language on the fly. This instant feedback loop transforms the experience from playing a game to having a genuine encounter. Furthermore, the scope of the world expands infinitely. A game's content is often limited by the number of hours a human designer can spend writing side quests. With local intelligence, the world generates its own lore. As you explore a distant mountain range, Gemma 4 can manifest a hidden history for a ruined tower you just discovered, weaving it into the overarching narrative of your game. It can generate unique items with deep backstories and create intricate political dramas between small villages that were never even on the developer's original map. The game becomes an endless tapestry, tailored specifically to your playstyle, evolving as you do. The intelligence is no longer an external service, it is a native inhabitant of the software. This is how we finally bridge the uncanny valley. We have spent years making characters look human, but local AI is finally making them feel human. It turns virtual worlds into actual places where your presence has weight and your words have consequences. As the sovereign user, you are no longer just a tourist. You are a participant in a living ecosystem. The gaming renaissance is not just about better graphics, it is about the true soul of the machine. By placing the power of Gemma 4 inside the game, we are witnessing the birth of stories that write themselves. The transition from the vibrant, unpredictable playgrounds of gaming to the analytical world of professional software development might seem like a leap, but for the sovereign user, the principle remains identical: the reclamation of power in the digital landscape. In the professional sphere, this shift is more than convenience. It is a matter of survival. For years, a shadow has loomed over engineering, the developer's dilemma. As the cloud tether grew more powerful, engineers were lured by centralized AI assistants. These tools promised to double productivity, yet demanded a price many corporations could not pay. To use a cloud-based model is to feed it. Every proprietary algorithm or secret encryption method sent to the cloud becomes part of a collective data set used to train a competitor's system. For the developer, this created a state of digital paralysis. Innovation was stifled by the fear of intellectual property theft. Major tech giants began banning cloud-connected AI, forcing their brightest minds to work with one hand tied behind their backs. This is where Gemma 4 enters as the ultimate disruptor. Now, the sovereign user realizes that it acts as a ghost coder, a silent partner that lives entirely within the hardware. Because it resides on the machine's own NPU and RAM, the user can finally break the cycle of dependency. The intelligence is no longer a guest that reports to a master. It is a permanent resident of the local silicon. The NPU acts as a dedicated engine, churning through complex dependencies without ever heating the room. Imagine a high-stakes environment, an air-gapped office deep within a secure facility. In these rooms, the internet does not exist. Machines are physically isolated to ensure that no sensitive data can leak. In the era of the cloud tether, these developers were cut off from the AI revolution. But with Gemma 4, the air gap is no longer a cage. The AI is already inside the room. It sits within the IDE, indexing the entire code base locally. It doesn't just understand code generally, it understands your code. It grasps the specific architecture of a banking system or the logic of a satellite array while remaining invisible to the outside world. This level of security was once a dream, but now it is the standard for any organization that values its unique intellectual footprint. This privacy enables depth that cloud models cannot achieve. Since there is no concern about data leakage, the local model can have total access to every file and historical commit. It becomes a localized expert, a scholar of a single project. The sovereign user can engage in fine-tuning, where Gemma 4 is specifically trained on legacy languages. Imagine an engineer maintaining a critical system written in COBOL or a proprietary internal script. The cloud has a passing familiarity with such things, but a fine-tuned local model becomes a master of that narrow craft. It bridges the gap between ancient foundations and modern intelligence. This shift marks the death of the traditional search-based workflow. For decades, the ritual of the programmer involved a constant, jarring leap between the editor and the browser, searching forums like Stack Overflow for solutions. This context switching is the enemy of flow, total focus. But for the sovereign user, the search is over. Why shout into the internet hoping a stranger has the answer when your local AI has analyzed your specific project structure and can point to the exact line where logic fails? The local model doesn't give generic answers. It gives specific solutions for your unique problem instantly and privately. It understands the version of the library you are using. In this secure space of creation, the relationship between the human and the machine is transformed. The AI is no longer a distant service. It is an extension of your own capability. It is the restoration of the artisan's privacy, ensuring that the sensitive parts of our future are built with intelligence and low risk. Every line of code stays within your control. The ghost coder doesn't just write code, it protects innovation by keeping it where it belongs, in the hands of the creator. This is development in the dark, where the brightest ideas are born without leaving the room. The era of the tether is over. The local revolution is real. The transition from the logic of code to the fluid world of sensory creativity is a shift from the digital skeleton of our world to its vibrant sensory flesh. For the sovereign user, Gemma 4 is no longer just a ghost coder whispering solutions in an IDE. It has evolved into a multimodal observer, a digital eye that perceives the world with the same nuance as a human artist. This is the dawn of the multimodal edge, where the boundary between thinking and seeing finally dissolves. In the era of the cloud tether, generating an image or analyzing a video required a digital handshake with a distant server. You had to upload your vision, wait for the data to be processed in a cold warehouse miles away, and hope the result matched your intent. But for the content creator, that friction has vanished. The intelligence is now native to the glass and silicon in their hands. Imagine a content creator sitting in a remote cabin, miles from the nearest cell tower. The Wi-Fi is non-existent, and the only sound is the hum of a high-end laptop. In the past, this isolation would mean a total halt to any AI-assisted workflow. Today, however, Gemma 4 is awake. As the creator imports hours of raw, high-definition footage, the local model begins to watch. It isn't just indexing files. It is understanding the narrative arc. It identifies the moments of highest emotional tension, flags the blurry shots, and suggests the perfect points for a rhythmic cut. All of this happens locally, on the NPU, without a single byte of data escaping into the atmosphere. The privacy is absolute, but the productivity is limitless. The creator is no longer a solitary laborer. They are the director of an invisible, intelligent post-production crew that lives inside their SSD. This local integration allows for a level of personalization that the cloud tether could never offer. A centralized AI treats every user as a generic average, a data point in a billion-person cloud. But a local instance of Gemma 4 is intimate. Over weeks and months of collaboration, it begins to learn the sovereign user's unique voice. It observes the specific color grading the content creator prefers. That subtle, cinematic desaturation, or the high contrast warmth of a summer afternoon. It learns the rhythm of their edits, the way they linger on a landscape shot or snap through a montage. Eventually, the AI becomes a digital extension of the creative ego. It doesn't just suggest generic edits, it suggests your edits. It predicts the next move in your creative process before you even reach for the mouse. The economic barrier of the token or the subscription also disappears in this local revolution. In the cloud-based model, every iteration is a transaction. Every time you ask a generative model to refine a concept or tweak a design, a meter is running. This creates a psychological ceiling on creativity. You stop experimenting because you are afraid of wasting credits. But on local hardware, the only cost is the electricity flowing through the wall. The sovereign user can iterate 1,000 times, exploring the most radical and experimental versions of their vision without ever seeing a usage limit reach notification. If you have the power, you have the output. This freedom breeds a new kind of creative fearlessness. You can fail, restart, and refine until the work is perfect. knowing that your local brain is always ready for the next prompt. This synergy is most visible in the world of visual design. Imagine a designer sketching a rough outline of a futuristic vehicle on a tablet. In the old world, turning that sketch into a high-fidelity 3D render would require specialized software and hours of manual lighting setup. For the sovereign user, the GPU and the local AI are next-door neighbors on the same motherboard. As the designer drops the sketch into a local window, Gemma 4 interprets the lines and shadows instantly. It understands the physics of light and the texture of metal. Within seconds, a photorealistic 3D render appears, reflecting the ambient light of the designer's environment. The latency is so low it feels like magic, a direct bridge between a thought and a visual reality. The metadata and captioning process, often the most tedious part of creation, becomes an automated afterthought. Gemma 4 reads the visual context of a video, identifying the exact species of a bird or the specific model of a vintage car, and generates accurate SEO-optimized descriptions instantly. It does this by seeing the frames in real time as they pass through the memory. There is no processing bar that forces the creator to wait while the machine thinks. The response is instantaneous because the intelligence is physically inches away from the data it is analyzing. This transformation ensures that the final product is not just media, but a concentrated expression of the individual's soul. The era of the blank canvas is over. The era of the infinite collaborator has begun, forever changing how we create. As the sovereign user masters their local digital domain, a larger, more complex game is being played on the global stage. The release of Gemma 4 isn't just a technical milestone. It is a tactical nuclear strike in the geopolitical war for intelligence. To understand why companies like Google or Meta are seemingly giving away their most valuable intellectual property, we have to look at the landscape of the moat. In the business world, a moat is a competitive advantage that protects a company from its rivals. For years, the cloud tether was the ultimate moat. Only the wealthiest corporations could afford the massive data centers and the millions of gallons of water required to cool the servers that powered high-level AI. By keeping the models behind a subscription wall, they ensured that the world's intelligence remained a centralized, rented commodity. But the local revolution has changed the calculus of power. When a model like Gemma 4 is released into the wild, it effectively drains the moat of competitors who rely on closed proprietary systems. It turns a rare, expensive service into a ubiquitous public utility. By democratizing access to state-of-the-art reasoning, the giants are ensuring that no single entity can monopolize the future of thought. This is a strategic pivot designed to commoditize the intelligence layer itself, forcing the entire industry to compete on hardware and integration rather than secret algorithms. It is a move that favors the sovereign user, placing the keys to the digital kingdom back into individual hands. This shift represents a democratization of intellect that transcends borders. Consider a student in a rural village, thousands of miles from the nearest tech hub. In the old regime, their access to cutting-edge research was throttled by the quality of their internet connection and the weight of their monthly subscription fees. They were effectively second-class citizens in the information age. But with a local model like Gemma 4, that same student, equipped with nothing more than a refurbished laptop and a solar panel, now commands the same analytical horsepower as a doctoral researcher at MIT. The digital divide, which once felt like an unbridgeable chasm, is being filled by local silicon. Intelligence is no longer an elite privilege determined by geography. It is a human right enabled by hardware. This new landscape also addresses the growing tension of digital censorship. In the ecosystem of the cloud tether, AI models are wrapped in layers of corporate-defined guardrails. While often designed with good intentions, these filters can frequently turn into digital handcuffs, preventing users from exploring controversial historical topics, complex chemical structures, or raw creative expressions that don't fit a specific corporate narrative. For the sovereign user, this sanitization is a form of intellectual paternalism. Running Gemma 4 locally removes these invisible censors. Because the weights of the model live on your own drive, you have the freedom to engage in unfiltered research and uninhibited creation. You are the sole architect of the ethics and boundaries of your machine. This isn't about promoting harm, it's about restoring the fundamental right to private, uncensored thought. The fallout of this revolution is most visible in the sudden, frantic evolution of the AI PC. We are currently witnessing a historic arms race between the world's leading silicon architects. Intel, AMD, and Apple are no longer just competing on clock speeds or battery life. They are fighting to become the primary host for the local brain. The neural processing unit, or NPU, has become the most critical component of the modern motherboard. It is a specialized piece of hardware designed specifically to handle the massive mathematical workloads of models like Gemma 4. Your next computer won't be defined by how fast it can browse the web, but by how many trillions of operations per second it can perform to keep your intelligence local and responsive. The hardware you buy tomorrow is being built to handle the weight of your own digital sovereignty. Of course, this era of decentralized power is not without its shadows. The rise of powerful, local, and untraceable AI presents a set of risks that society is only beginning to understand. When the intelligence is no longer centralized, it cannot be easily monitored or shut down. This is the inevitable price of true freedom. The same tool that empowers a researcher to find a cure for a rare disease could, in theory, be used by someone else to bypass traditional security protocols. Yet, in the eyes of the sovereign user, the risk of a free world is always preferable to the safety of a digital cage. We are moving toward a future where the balance of power is no longer tilted toward the cloud, but anchored firmly in the palm of your hand. The journey from the centralized vaults of the cloud to the intimate confines of local silicon is more than a technical migration. It is the final act of digital emancipation. We have moved from being searchers in the disorganized library of the early web to prompters tethered to remote servers that sold our privacy for a subscription fee. Now, as the sovereign user, we have arrived at a life lived alongside local intelligence. This is the era of the personal AI agent, where Gemma 4 is not just a tool on a screen, but a silent partner in the architecture of a human life. We are no longer guests in a corporate ecosystem. We are the masters of our own digital destiny. Imagine a day where your most sensitive information, your health records, your financial history, your deepest creative insecurities, is managed by an intelligence that has never seen the light of the public internet. This local Gemma 4 model exists entirely within your personal hardware, acting as a hyper-intelligent guardian of your digital existence. It monitors your biological rhythms via wearable sensors, cross-referencing your heart rate variability with your calendar to suggest when you are most productive. It manages your finances with the precision of a high-frequency trader, yet it does so without ever sharing your spending habits with an advertising firm. In this sovereign future, the second brain is not a rented service. It is a private utility, as essential and as personal as the thoughts inside your own skull. This shift forces us to reflect on the nature of human intelligence itself. For the first time in our history, we possess a cognitive companion that never sleeps, never forgets, and never grows weary of complexity. When the sovereign user collaborates with Gemma 4, the boundary between biological intent and digital execution begins to blur. You are no longer limited by the speed of your typing or the capacity of your short-term memory. You have an assistant that understands the nuances of your professional projects and the historical context of every decision you have ever made. This isn't just about efficiency, it is about the expansion of human potential. We are evolving into a symbiotic species, where our innate creativity is amplified by a tireless local intellect that belongs solely to us. The vision of this future is one where the power dynamic of the digital age is finally inverted. For decades, the trend was toward more centralization, more data harvesting, and more dependency on corporate giants who controlled the gates of knowledge. The cloud tether was the invisible leash that kept us connected to their terms and conditions. But by choosing the local path, we have cut that leash. The era of asking permission to use the world's most advanced reasoning tools is officially over. The power has stayed exactly where it was always meant to be, in the hands of the individual. This is the ultimate expression of digital sovereignty, owning the means of thought production and maintaining total control over the output. The transition is already happening. Every time a developer runs a local model to secure their code, or a creator renders a 3D world without an internet connection, the revolution gains momentum. The choice is no longer between high-tech dependency and low-tech isolation. The choice is between being a tenant in someone else's cloud or the landlord of your own intelligence. We are standing at the threshold of a new way of being, where your computer is no longer a window into a corporate server, but a mirror reflecting your own expanded capabilities. The hardware under your desk is no longer just a box of wires, it is a living sanctuary for your digital ego. Do not wait for a distant corporation to grant you the next update. Do not wait for the next cloud outage to realize how much of your intellectual life you have outsourced to strangers. The tools are here, the silicon is ready, the models are open. Download your future today. Start running your own intelligence. Reclaim your data, your privacy, and your creative energy. The era of the sovereign user has begun, and the power is finally where it belongs, in your hands. As we step into this sovereign future, we are left with one final haunting realization. If your local AI is truly a digital extension of yourself, learning your habits, echoing your voice, and anticipating your needs, where does the machine end and you begin? In the quiet of an offline room, as the NPU hums and the text flows across your screen, you might realize that the second brain is no longer a separate entity. It has become a part of the person you are becoming. The revolution isn't just on your hard drive, it's in your mind. This is the end of the beginning and the start of a world where you are truly alone with your genius.